I tell people, if you don't have a friend in your life who will laugh at your stuff,
or call you out,
call you out,
Yeah.
then
you don't have a friend.
You don't have a friend.
Welcome to the broadcast. This is Michael Easley in Context. And before you go any further, if you didn't watch the first time that Mike Glenn and Tim Harlow and I talked, I'd encourage you to go back and listen to that on your podcast source or watch it on YouTube, even better. And we'd love to hear from you. But we're continuing a conversation with three guys. All have been involved in 45, 44, 30, 40 years of ministry. And so we're having a good time just talking about ministry and some things we've learned and sharing some of our concerns about the future and pastors in general. So without introducing you again, Mike and Tim, welcome back.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Fun to have you.
Yeah.
Now, always glad to be back.
Back? Yeah.
I make a good first impression. It's usually that second or third time where
You're right. You're right.
When they asked you back to the conference you spoke at last year.
Back. That's the deal.
No,
That's
that
the
means
win.
they couldn't get anybody else. What it means. Mike said yes last year. He'll come again.
Yeah, all the way down to the G's.
Truly, I had a wedding request about a year, maybe more ago, and I knew the guy. I didn't know him really well, but I knew him. And I hung up the phone and called a mutual friend. I said, I don't think I was the first one he asked. He busted out like, no, I can assure you, you weren't. You're way down the list, pal. Anyway, all right. Well, I want to start with a little harder turn on this discussion. I want to have confession time. What gave you the greatest grief in ministry? And we can talk in tones to protect things, but what gave you the greatest grief over the years of ministry?
You don't want his name?
Well, better email and Twitter account, and Insta or X.
I can go because it's the same answer for all of us.
Oh,
the people that left, the people that you would pour into, in some cases for decades, and then something would happen and they thought you changed, or something changed for them and they left. And I don't care how stubborn you think you are or how much self-confidence you think you have, that rocks you every time. And it hurts every time. And even if, like it's one spouse has to leave and the other one's like, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter. It just guts you.
Anytime somebody would say, we're just not being fed here, or any one of those that would take a shot at your competence in ministry, that wounds you. The other one is to look back on it. You're going, that's an unrealistic expectation. But it's the marriage you couldn't save. It's the addict who didn't quit.
Yeah, the suicide.
Yeah, the suicide that you didn't stop.
Yeah,
or you didn't see.
Yeah, right.
You didn't see. I was just
right.
Surely he knew.
Yeah,
I was here for it.
Yeah,
surely he knew that.
Yeah.
And you sit around late at night replaying every conversation, going, what did I miss? What could I have said? What did I not say?
I think that all of us have been part of larger churches, and at some point you start to become more of a business person and a CEO than a pastor, because you've got levels underneath you and all those kinds of things. But every person that goes into ministry has a pastoral heart. I don't have.
Let's hope.
Well,
Let's hope.
I don't have the gift of mercy. Like, that's not my. You don't want me coming to your hospital room. That's not what I'm saying. But
note to self.
Yeah. I'll carry your casket, but up to that point,
I would tell people God knew you didn't need mercy. That's why He brought you to me.
That's right. but
I
that's
got
what
people
made
over
it.
here. Yeah.
There's a part of us that God made us this way so that we could lead and
Yeah.
we could be strong enough to take the hits, you know. But at the end of the day, we all have some kind of a pastoral heart in there. So, you know, a second to that would be the staff issues.
Right.
You know, you have to fire somebody that you love, and they didn't do anything wrong. They're just incompetent at this level or whatever. Or worse yet, you've got, you know, staff moral failures or those kinds of things. You just want to love on everybody, and you want everybody to be okay. And that's not realistic.
Yeah, the expectation theme you both brought up, and I think there's unrealistic expectations, there's legitimate expectations, but when you're the bummer of a birthmark, you know, you're the target. How do you differentiate what's unrealistic and what's realistic?
Yeah.
If you stay in the ministry, you get better at that.
Yeah, that's true.
So when I woke up and had a vision for you to do in the
That's right.
local
Yeah,
church,
yeah.
but
You
God
get-
told me.
you get better. You get better at that.
I'll say this though. I walked away at age 62 from a 33-year ministry, and that was 40 years in ministry for me. And I'm doing other things in the kingdom and all of that at this point. But I started seeing, and we've talked about this, but I started seeing guys walk away earlier and earlier. And I believe that wearing the mantle is such a burden that everybody ought to be thinking about it sooner than later.
Okay, let me interrupt because we're of the same ilk and mindset about getting out. Or Hendricks always said, leave 3 years early, but not one day late.
Yeah, there you go.
But we followed a generation that's in their 80s and 90s and still won't let go of the pulpit.
Right.
And I don't say that's wrong. I think it's different. But what's the economy of view of ministry of, you know, there's no retirement, there's no succession, you die in the pulpit versus what we chose to do?
What I talk about is the calling remains. It's a different context. Okay, Tim's still called. All of us would recognize that in his life. The context is different. You're still called, but the context in which you experience that is being a pastor of a church. While I loved it, that's just one context. There are lots of ways to serve the kingdom, and it became really apparent.
Okay, I appreciate that, but there's a different view, and we won't name names, but we all have people we respect and have watched. In a way, they were our mentors. They were, you know,
Absolutely.
they were our Barnabases, if you want to put it that way. And we go, you know, you got a constituency. There's a constituency at Brentwood Baptist that would have you stay there till you died in the pulpit.
Yeah,
And they'd have been happy for
it
you.
would have been sooner rather than later.
They might have
See,
aided.
those
That's why you
those
retired.
aren't friends. You think those friends? No, they want to ride you into the ground.
Okay. But I watch some of these guys and I go, you know, they have a hard time going up and down steps. I do. Their mental sharpness is the
Absolutely.
same.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
yeah.
tell old stories.
Yeah.
They live with a nostalgia.
Uh-huh.
And I don't want to be unkind or indelicate, but I'm going, would somebody come up and say, hey, it's time,
And
Tim, for
they
you
still got to walk away. You know, I mean, for me to walk away at 62, I mean, having grandkids and they're all here, and that's why, you know, I'm here. That's a big part of it. But so I walk away at 66 instead of 62. Is the church better off? No, because they've still got to go through a transition when I'm 66. They still have to find the next leader. What I've done now is I've given the church the blessing to move into the next leader, and it's going great. And you know, you guys know that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I got those 4 years with my grandkids, and my oldest one's 10, and he's not going to be around that much longer.
For me, it was. I tell people how were you able to stay at a church for 32 years? I pastored 4 or 5 churches at the same address.
Yeah.
And the normal transition
Good
of
observation.
when
Yeah.
I would have gone to another church, Brentwood was in a transition, and I got to do different things and exercise different muscles and learn different things. And so it was always exciting for me. Brentwood was getting ready to go into the next transition.
Well, and for folks that don't know, interrupt you for a second, you relocated a
Right.
church from point A to point B. I did not do that. Did you ever do that?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So that's a whole, you're
Whole different-
literally
right.
right. That's a completely different
Right.
congregation.
And it changes everything, and you have to change how you lead and how you pastor and all that. So that was always exciting to me. But when I sat down and squinted my eyes and saw what was just ahead, Brentwood, like a lot of neighborhoods in Tennessee, has gone through this unbelievable change.
Unbelievable change.
And that the neighborhoods, and you know how I say this, the neighborhoods that we used to own. You know, if you lived here, you went to Brentwood Baptist Church. If you lived here, we own now those neighborhoods are filled with new people. And Brentwood Baptist Church in this next transition is literally having to introduce itself to those old neighborhoods who are filled with new people.
Okay, that's great.
And they don't have any history
No
with the Brentwood
history,
Country
no
Club,
connect-
with the socioeconomic, with any of that
To
stuff.
the point that when I was talking to one of these new neighbors and he asked what I did, and I told him, he asked, well, where is that? And I told him,
I'm sorry to laugh.
that's what that building is.
No kidding.
No kidding.
No kidding. That's what the cross on the steeple didn't
Yeah,
give you
it
a
was
clue.
The
not.
biggest thing on the corner.
But
Yeah.
you know, when you drive anywhere, we know every church.
Right.
I mean, our radar picks
Yeah.
up every church in every town we go through.
That's a fair point.
These new people moving in are moving in for low taxes, weather, schools, and all that. They're not looking for a church, and so they never see it.
Interesting. Let me change subjects broadly here. I want to talk about accountability. Now, this was a term, I don't know if you trafficked in it a lot when you were younger, but this was sort of a byword because a lot of us, you mentioned someone who failed in ministry in your church. I followed a person that failed in ministry, and we had some also on staff that failed in ministry for moral issues. And so we kind of brandished this, well, you have to be accountable. But we all know accountability can be a charade. Yet, I would say defensively, I have tried to be very accountable. 5 or 6 friends that know my soul, know my secrets. I call them. Mike's heard me tell this story. They know when I need a dope slap and when I need encouragement. But what did you guys do in ministry over the years to protect yourself in broad terms, accountability? And then what would you say to the next generation coming up behind us?
The reason I was able to, this is an overstatement, but I walked away with a faithfulness to my marriage. I left a church in good shape, and it's moving on. And a big part of the reason all that happened was 20 years ago. I could see what was going on, and I had 2 brother-in-laws in ministry, so I had some of that kind of built in. But 20 years ago, bonded together with 3 other guys. We just hit on this idea, and C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien, they were part of the Inklings. So we called ourselves the Stinklings because we weren't that good.
I like it.
And twice a year we go somewhere. It's a foursome, so we play golf. Now it's pickleball, whatever. We're each one of them leading their own large organization and church, all of us kind of in the Midwest, like Cleveland, Ohio, and Baltimore and Springfield, Illinois, and I was in Chicago, about the same age, and we just linked together and we made it happen. And we sat down the very first time we got together and wrote out a statement, and it was, I will do this, I won't do this, and we filled in, and we will do ministry like this person, and we filled in that, and we will not do ministry like this person, and we filled that in. And at that first gathering, one of the guys admitted to having a problem with something, and the accountability happened immediately, and twice a year, and every day on text. I mean, they're my
That's
Paul
rare.
brothers. I know it is.
That's very rare.
I know
like
it is,
my
but-
guys are super rare, but you made that a determination.
We made it, and I'm glad to say that we've modeled that to a lot of the younger guys that we've mentored, and they're doing the same thing because they could see how valuable it has been.
Well, and when you talk about those friendships, people lean in and go, I wish I had friends like that.
Yeah.
First they say, I wish I could be Tim's friend.
Yeah,
And then they go, maybe I can create my own friendships.
exactly.
How about you, Mike?
Whenever I talk with a pastor, he says, "Well, I'm not under anybody's accountability."
You hear it a lot.
That's always stuff. My response is, you're always being held accountable, either informally or formally. The church has its expectations out there. Now, you may not know what they are until you drop the ball,
Broach it.
and they call you on the carpet. But the thing of accountability was, somebody who's yelling at you all the time about the best accountable people are those who say, "That's not you. This is, we know who you are.
Interesting.
This is your best self, and you're not living up to that best self. What's wrong? What's happening?" When Jean and I would discipline the boys, we'd sit down with them, and we would say, we literally have pictures of you before you were born. We know who you are.
Right.
And this is who we know you to be. This behavior doesn't match who we know you to
That's
be.
good.
So tell us what happened.
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell us stuff? If you don't have a group of guys, and we use that term band of brothers, who are watching out for you, who know your triggers. If you get too tired, AA calls it HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired.
Right.
If you're working too much, if you're just stuff, if you don't have somebody coming up and going, "Hey, we're watching this and we don't like it."
Mm-hmm. Have you had that happen in ministry?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple of elders over the years that came up and said basically the same thing. That's not who you are.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And hold you the standard of your best self.
The beautiful thing for me is, and I'm just going to warn, we need to warn everybody out there, when you do walk away from this thing, it's an emotional experience. And I've gone through the ebbs and flows over the past year of turning this thing away and moving away and losing my identity and starting over in a new community, and all of the emotions that go along with that. It's huge. And
which goes back to my earlier conversation. Some of these people we respect so much, is that part of the reason they can't shake loose?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and it's different if you stay in the same community as if you leave. And I understand all of that, but it's insecurity. That's all it is. And nobody was more insecure than me. So when I let go, I was like, well, nobody's calling me.
The phone doesn't ring.
The phone doesn't ring.
It is.
Don't get the Christmas card.
One of the most sobering things for me was when I opened up I have several Gmail accounts, and one says, "You have no messages." Or there's nothing on the calendar today. I go, "Oh, God."
Nobody. So I stepped down, handed off to a minister who'd been on our staff.
Yeah.
That I had been pouring into. I knew he was going to be the guy phone, so I poured into stuff. And do you remember when you took your kid to school at first grade, and your heart was so
sobbed
full,
like
and you wanted to be so? This is your. And you get to school and they jump out and go, "Bye, Dad."
Or college.
Yeah, that's exactly what Brentwood Baptist Church did. I just wanted to give "Bye, Dad," and I was gone.
Yeah.
And now, I tell people all the time, Jay's doing so well, he hurts my feelings. It's just.
I feel the same way about Ted.
I'm a trivia question, man.
Who
was that guy before Jay?
Yeah.
Who was that guy?
White hair?
Yeah.
I bring that up because nobody has gone through that journey with me more than my three guys, my Sinkling guys. I mean, and they've heard me say some pretty crazy
unvarnished
stuff.
things,
Pretty crazy stuff. And they've been patient, and they've guided me, and they've listened, and I don't know where I'd be if it wasn't for that.
I tell people, if you don't have a friend in your life who will laugh at your stuff,
or call you out,
Yeah.
Then
you don't have a friend.
You don't have a friend.
Yeah. You talked about things you wouldn't do, and I don't remember the first year I did this, but I have 30 things that would happen if I lost my integrity. And I glue them in all my Bibles and devotional books. And then in the back, I have a list, not for consumption, of 40 pastors that blew it.
Wow.
and not for publication,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I go, this is the warning page, this is the consequence, and this is
Holy
life in
cow.
between. Because this is what will keep me from being on the back page. In fact, years ago, I spoke at a men's conference.
Wow,
and
that's great.
I would tell this story, and I had this guy come up probably within the last 2 or 3 years because I have a goal that I put on my thing every year. It says, stay off the back page of Michael's Bible.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's the way you want to do it. But
I don't want to be the guy the ambulance carries out of the gym.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
You know, the guy falls over on the
Oh,
treadmill. No, I don't want. No.
But the accountability structures and the sinklings, and I don't know how you cultivated this, but I found, and I'm glad you had the 4-way thing, four guys involved. I found I had to make a decision to pursue and not worry about tit for tat or reciprocal.
Right, yeah, right,
I'm
yeah.
going to pursue this guy and develop a relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the economy of relationships, some are here in ministry, some are marriage, some are finance, some are just wisdom in life. Some are guys that are not involved in ministry at all, but just great people. And to me, it's like that was a no-brainer, but I found that's very rare.
Just guys in general. We seem to have friends for different reasons. We have friends that make us laugh. We have friends that we're serious with. We have friends that we trust financially. We have friends golf. We have
Hunting, whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Travel.
So, but we have friends for. I have a couple of friends that can make me laugh so hard coffee comes up my nose. You know,
Yeah.
and you having one of those days. You call them, and
Yeah.
they got some wild story that they're in.
It never stops.
Yeah. So.
But what you said was you have to pursue
You got to
it.
pursue them.
Ain't nobody going to call you and say, or if they do, they're
want
probably not
something.
the one
they
you
want
want.
something.
Right.
Yeah. The guy that
Yeah.
comes up and says, I want to mentor you, or I want to be
yeah.
your disciple,
Yeah.
run away from.
Yeah. Exactly.
Probably.
But the guys that when I was younger in my ministry, the guys that I admired, that I saw, and I would go up to and go, will you help me? Will you be? I never had anybody turn me down.
Yeah.
Well, but there's also
every one of them.
But
said,
a guy
yeah.
like you asking that question,
Yeah.
same for me in college, because I'd been raised Roman Catholic, came to Christ at 15, but didn't really know what to do with it.
Right.
When I go to college, I'm attending a Bible church, and I'm starting to see that guy's a oral surgeon. This
Right.
guy's a banker.
Right.
They have a Bible. They have a book. They're taking to Sunday school, and I'm chasing these guys. I'm wearing a Ford uniform that says Mike over here, Tipton Ford, and that was my uniform, and I'm going, hey, can you help me? And they're happy to.
Oh yeah.
But to now go back to, because you've been involved, perhaps both of you more than me, with young adult ministries. Do young people today want that type of relationship with a
I
guy
think
like
so.
you or you?
Yeah. My
Yeah.
calendar could be completely full, and I think that's a lack in the church. Honestly, I could have done a better job of it along the way. And but here's where we go back to, no retirement in the Bible and all that kind of stuff. There is retirement in the Bible. The high priest in Numbers 11 was supposed to retire at age 50 and assist the brothers.
Younger, yeah.
So what I think when we're talking about this is that my job now is to not be the guy with the target on my back. I'm not the guy that's everybody's gonna know my name or invite to the event. I'm the guy that's assisting the brothers. And the more that we lean into that, I just think that's what this phase of ministry is supposed to be about for us.
Yeah, and you end up enjoying their success more than your own.
Right. Yeah.
That's
the fun
maturity,
thing.
though.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I
That's
don't
maturity.
know. It's kind of fun.
But that's because you're mature.
Well,
and I think
I've never had anybody tell me that, so I don't.
No.
This is the first time.
But it's also fun.
you're
'cause
growing still, Mike.
It's also fun because you didn't have to deal with their problems. And
Yeah.
so you can rejoice in it because
Yeah.
when it blows up, it's not your problem either.
Yeah.
We
But
hear
there's also the role of being air cover
Oh, all day.
for these younger pastors,
Yeah.
and every now and then walking over to an older member of a church and
Yes.
going, you're not really helpful to this process.
So I had each year at the church in Virginia, we had a youth Sunday. Y'all do that where the youth pastor
Oh,
preaches?
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and so they typically scheduled it after Easter.
Yeah.
because everybody was exhausted from all the
Right.
Easter
Yeah,
programs,
yeah.
and no one came the
Right,
Sunday
that's
after
right,
Easter,
yeah.
right? So give it to the
Low
youth guy.
Sunday.
So, but I always went to, raise the flag, and I had this one guy every year. He'd get in my face, and he's a big old government dude, and he'd get in my face about young people, hey, music loud, and he'd just go on and on, and it was. I have to say, it wasn't like thought through. Just God maybe gave me an answer. I listened to him, and I said, I just look at those kids who've been practicing for a month. And I look at that youth pastor who's doing the best he can when he doesn't preach very often.
Right.
And I see the parents of those kids and how proud they are of their kid being involved in the local church. And I said, I really don't care much beyond that, because this is probably more about what God's doing in their life than the fact that you're mad that I wasn't preaching this Sunday.
And the seeds that he's planting for the future.
And this guy would just kind of pull a curtain, but he probably did that 4 or 5 years in a row. He didn't listen very well.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Imagine that. Okay, let's change. We touched on it a bit, but one of you mentioned burnout or working too hard. Is this really a problem in ministry? Because after all, you only work on Sundays, and you're invited out to dinner all the time, and people take you to their lake house. And, it's a pretty cushy job. How can you get burnout, Mike?
You
never had burnout, huh?
You neglect the fundamentals.
Good. Say more.
Ministry, however you express it, comes out of the overflow of Christ in your life, which is the basics of a dedicated prayer time, a protected scripture time, not studying scripture because you got to preach. We got into this because we love scripture. Mm-hmm. And then you show up and the church takes the Bible away from you.
Boy, they quickly.
And it becomes the tool of your ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the great things about not preaching as much is I have fallen in love with Scripture again. I get back on my back porch and open the Bible.
And Sunday ain't coming.
And I'm in no hurry.
Yeah.
And I can
Or
spend.
if it is, I'm preaching an old sermon.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that's right. So
polish it up.
I don't have to do that. Whenever these guys burn out, fall, you look at them and I guarantee you they have dropped the fundamentals.
Yeah.
So they didn't burn out by being committed to Bible study, personal prayer, and
No, they burn out because they're preaching 3 to 4 times a week. They're getting on an airplane Monday morning or Sunday evening. They're preaching 4 or 5. You look at one of the guys whose moral failing is still in the news. He was president of a school. He was pastor of a megachurch. He was this. He was that. And you go, when in the world were you home?
Right. Right.
And why didn't anybody pull him aside and didn't love him
because
enough?
America loves a success story.
Well,
America
but
wants to
that's
hear
not
from
a
the
success.
first big church in
Yeah,
the world.
but
They don't
that's-
want to hear from some 200-member church pastor who loves God and loves his people.
Well, one time when I left Kairos, there was a bunch of guys, and they said, "Hey, we're going out to dinner. Go out with us. Come to dinner with us." I said, "No." I said, "Why not?" I said, "Because I have waiting for me at home what you're looking for." I can go to dinner with you guys, or I can go home to a good-looking blonde, buddy. That ain't a hard question.
Exactly.
No, I'll see y'all. But
He died suspiciously in his home. Was that-
that's right. Yeah. The joke is, I told the church one time that because we'd had all these pastors, and I said, "Hey, I know y'all worried." I said, "Let me tell you, that will never. You will never hear about that. Now you may hear I died tragically in the home, but you will not hear I had an affair."
That's right.
Yeah.
I had a significant burnout, and it was, ironically, I thought it was ironic at the time. It was in an amazing season.
Oh yeah.
I was finishing up my dissertation. My kids were doing great. The church had just relocated and literally doubled in size. All the things I'd been working literally for 13 years at this church to have happen were happening before my eyes. And I had been at a gathering of pastors the week before and said everything was great and it felt great. And then I had that literal moment that you hear about. We had Saturday night services and I was walking out on stage and I didn't think I could do it.
Wow.
And in God's providence, I happened to be going to be with some other pastors the next week or the week right after, and a counselor that somebody had set up this thing. I didn't know very many of the guys, but it was just this thing, and it was an opportunity for me. So I'm out in nature, and I'm looking at this hillside. We were in Northern California at this retreat thing, and I'm looking at this hillside, and there's this big tree that's growing out of the side of the hill there. The grass is all, golden, and this tree's growing, but I can tell it's big, but it's not doing great. And down in the valley was a small tree that was very healthy, and plain as it could have been audibly, God was like, which tree do you think you are? And that was a wake up call for me. I will say that, admitting that we had a Saturday night service was tricky. I mean, there's a lot of this that I'm learning now about ministry. The fact that we work weekends and other people don't,
Right.
From a sociological standpoint, that's just not good. And I don't think we were designed to be doing that all of our lives. I love being able to go to church with my family,
Right.
and to be off and do things with my grandkids on the weekends. And I never got the chance to do that.
To inject on that, my mind's running several places. One is the analogy would have been perfect. There was a dead tree that was all full of termites. That'd have been me.
Or falling over, eating out from the heart.
Beaver chewed the bottom.
Yeah.
But back to I had a professor at Dallas called Dallas Seminary, Don Sanukian.
Oh, yeah.
He teaches at Talbot, and he was big on Pastor Sabbath. And for him, it was Monday, and I adopted that. And for years, that was sacrosanct.
Yeah,
I wouldn't take a phone call.
No.
I wouldn't go to a hospital visit. In fact, I was going to write a book called "Why Do People Always Die on My Day Off?" Because it seemed like it was always going to happen on Monday.
Or vacation.
Hey, so and so died. Oh gosh,
Yeah,
you go
right.
for vacation and somebody's marriage falls apart.
Yeah.
But and they called the pastor.
Yeah.
But we were very guarded about that Monday.
Yeah.
And when my kids were little, taking them, for donuts or go feed the ducks, whatever. And the thing I loved about it from a ministry standpoint, everybody else was on a treadmill. So I could go anywhere Monday. There were no lines,
Right.
no waiting.
I know.
I could go to the little lake by my house. They weren't crushed with the.
Yeah.
So I cherished that Sabbath. But I do think most guys don't understand that rhythm,
No.
or work gets in the way, or whatever. But the other part of it, and this dovetails into how we interface with volunteers and so-called lay leaders, they still have 40, 50-hour-a-week jobs.
Right.
And if they're on the weekend, children's ministries, teaching,
Yeah. Right.
Awana, evening, whatever it is, they got to go to work 7 a.m. Monday morning.
Right.
And pastors don't pastors can take the day off.
Yeah, I know.
They can study from home.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, that was a novel idea, work from home.
Right.
And so there's a traffic of communicating with the church. My life is different because my weekends are committed.
Yeah.
And I would say also onus on the church leaderships. I think most churches fail in this regard. Your pastor shouldn't be in the pulpit more than 40 times a year.
Even then,
He should not be, that should be the fulcrum.
That was the high point for me
Boy, I
a
don't know
long
about
time
you.
before that.
That was a fight everywhere I was. They want, you need to be there. I brought a friend, you weren't there. I'm sorry, bring him again.
Well, we know of a famous pastor who was never allowed to be off because when he was off, the offerings dropped.
Yeah. Yeah.
And his leader said, "You can't be off."
Yeah.
Too bad they didn't have video in those days,
Well,
right?
yeah.
Holograms.
Yeah, hologram,
Online
and all
giving.
That, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Box in the back.
vacation he would take from Monday to Saturday or whatever, but he couldn't be off a Sunday.
Well, but to your point and to your joke about why does people die on my day off, that is the bigger problem. We can do whatever we want to with the Sabbath, and for me it was Friday, and
mine was
it
Friday
was
too.
because I wanted to get everything done,
Yeah.
and then I could relax.
But let me interrupt you. Could you get it done Friday and not be having
Yeah.
the sermon hanging over you
Yeah.
Saturday morning?
Saturday at noon. That's when.
Okay.
That's when it kicked for
That's
me.
why this was Monday, because I knew I wouldn't be cramming. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No.
but you're making a great point.
It was a good discipline for me because then I'd have to
Absolutely.
be done Thursday. I was supposed to be done Thursday at noon so that they could take it and do the stuff that they needed to do with it.
That's
Now,
great
anybody
discipline.
from my staff that's watching is just rolling their eyes right now.
That happened twice last year.
One day. He did it one
Hey,
time.
you shut up. That's what's supposed to happen.
That's
but
why
then
you
I could
polish
take,
those sermons.
yeah, I could take Friday because then I would come back on Saturday and be ready, and I had to be ready for Saturday night.
Not yet.
But the point is, it doesn't matter if you're on vacation or you're on your Sabbath or whatever else. That guy dies. It's there.
You gotta go.
You either got to go or it's in your brain. And as we started pastoring these churches that were larger and larger, we could have all kinds of staff take care of all kinds of things, but I still knew what was going on. And I still felt like I probably should have called them. It's that kind of expectation.
That haunt never stops even to this day.
Yeah.
I
Right.
probably should have called
Right,
so
yeah.
and so.
You're right.
Right.
You're right.
Even to this day, I think about certain people that were, tragedies or
Yeah.
heartbreaks, and I go, I should have called.
You were
so-and-so.
and you were particularly close at one part of their life,
Right.
and you now feel some kind of ownership to that.
You still marrying people that and officiating, and
I've done one or two. I don't do a whole lot.
you haven't been out of it that long. But the church in D.C. we left in 2004. 5, and I still get requests to do funerals.
No kidding.
And it's sort of like I appreciate that, but it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And then if you do it for this one, that's a whole nother discussion.
Right.
Then you
Yeah.
get, then you
The one
fall
thing I
back
did
in it.
learn, and I can't remember, I think it was Restoring Your Spiritual Passion, Gordon MacDonald's little book, my self-help years when I read all these books. But I think I learned it from him, and it happened literally probably within the week of reading the book, whatever book it was. We were going on vacation, and it was just the two girls and Cindy and me. And you know how you mow the yard, get the thing ready. You're schlepping everything, getting in the van, and the phone rings. And before cell phones, and I answer the phone. Mistake number one. And this woman, her husband had just walked out, and she's crying and sobbing, and she calls me first, right? And I listened, and this thing that I read, it wasn't original. I said, "I'm so sorry this happened. I'm heartbroken with you, but I can't do anything for you today. But I'll be back on this day, and I'll be the first. You can come to my office 8 o'clock that morning. I would be happy to see you. In the meantime, here's and she never was upset with me,
Right.
And she never was. It was one of those.
It's self-imposed.
Even if totally, even
It's
if it's the
completely
weekend,
self-imposed.
I really can't do anything today on Friday.
Yeah.
But Tuesday morning, first thing,
Right.
And when you do that, 9 out of 10, like
They
the
do it.
ideas,
Right.
they never show up.
Right. Yeah.
They never, so
or they get their problem solved in other ways that didn't involve you.
the crisis management.
You say it's self-imposed. It may be, but it is church enforced or reinforced.
Expected.
If you have that, nobody in the church goes, "You don't need to do that."
Yeah.
You're always a great pastor because you're always here.
But you might have a guy that'll come up and say,
Yeah.
"Why are you doing that?"
Right, yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
on a number of
I
occasions.
did too.
I mean,
But-
I was notorious for picking up a broom
Yeah.
and cleaning up the counters in the men's restroom between services that
Yeah.
were disgusting, and
Yeah.
and I would have a guy say, "That's not your job."
Yeah.
I say, "Well, it needs to be done, but that's not what we're paying you for."
Well, yeah. The quote I heard was, "I'll give you the choice, Pastor. You can be the pastor, you can be the janitor, but we pay the pastor more here."
I was going to say, if they paid the same amount, I'd be happy to do that.
No kidding.
Yeah, we don't pay.
How
we
many
don't pay
days?
that much.
How many days did you want to become the janitor and just take the pay cut?
Yeah.
We had a big operation, kind of like you do at Brentwood at Virginia, and there was a guy there that was a facilities guy. He'd been there forever. He was a great craftsman. He could do anything.
yeah.
And a lot of the pastors over the years, not just the senior, but the other pastors on staff, would come tell him all their problems. They kind of trusted him,
He was a church
And
bartender.
Yeah, basically. And he would often say, "You want to come work for me?" Because there was just this. In light of that, I'm at seminary. John Walford was the president, and he would say, in that era, you can't have friends, close friends, in the local church. Your friends should be outside the church. And us young bucks were going, oh, no, we're the authenticity cult, the transparency, the vulnerability cult. You have to show people your wounds or they won't follow you kind of cult. And I'll suspend my opinions on that. But how do you react to that you could not have close friends in the local church where you pastored and served?
Depends. It does.
Diplomatically?
It depends. It depends on the maturity of your church. It depends on who's in your church. By and large, that is true. There's always the church committee or whatever who'll say, hey, we want a pastor who's like us. No, they don't.
Let's hope not, right?
No, they don't. They don't want you like them. They don't want you to laugh at the same jokes that they laugh at or do what they do. Or they don't want
or smoke the same stuff.
You're supposed to be different.
Interesting.
And if you're going to speak into my life with any authority, you better be different.
I disagree with it. I did and I do, and it's going to bite you. It's not always going to work.
You can have deep friends, but you cannot find them fast.
Right.
Well, that's true as a principle.
Well, yeah,
right.
You're not going to have deep
friends.
friendships.
I believe in both and.
Right.
And I have a couple. Well, I could name a half a dozen guy friends that I just flat out told I will not. I mean, we were an elder-led organization. You would qualify as an elder, but you're not going to be one. You're going to be my friend.
I told one of my friends that too.
And the elders were my friends. Some of my friends, I said, you're going to be an elder because I need you in this thing. And the elders were all my friends too, but there were different levels of things that you could do, and you got to. I mean, it's no different than any other friendship. You got to know that it's going to bite you at some point, and things aren't all, and it may not last forever. And that when I went back to my my heartache, people leaving, sometimes that's what's going to happen. Also on my staff, I mean, my executive pastor was my best friend, and it was just unique. I mean, that's what it was, and it was okay because we had that, And
did it cause any trouble when you were supervising him?
No, because I needed more supervision from him than he needed from me.
But that suggests that tell that we've all had people who betrayed us.
Oh yeah,
in the church.
Oh yeah, it's going to happen. Yeah. No, Bill was like my second wife. He was a 6 on the Enneagram, and my wife is a 5 with a 6 wing, which is the very conservative. Oh no, the sky's falling,
right.
And I'm an 8, and so I had 2 wives. I had my executive pastor and my real wife.
On that note, we should probably end this podcast because Tim Harlow is going to have some trouble.
The Church of Jesus Christ? No, never mind.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, this probably is a good landing place. Tim and Mike, it's a great conversation to have. Again, let us know. You can make comments on any of the ways you consume this media. You can write us emails. We'd love to hear from you. And let us know what you think. We might continue doing something like this. God bless and thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.